I just came back from Amsterdam, and I love the coffee houses there because they always have a sofa in the front window and 2 or 3 people lying back smoking reefers. And this is really a follow-up on what was just asked. If they more or less make marijuana perfectly legal, I don't think taking cocaine is legal, but it's certainly not discouraged.
Tolerated, yeah.
How much danger would there be, since if it's all legalized, and let's say you can get it at the coffee house the way you can in Amsterdam, how much danger is there of just the populace saying, well, it's legal, why not give it a go?
Well, Amsterdam is actually a very violent city. It's the second most violent city, I believe, in Europe, after, of course, London. And actually the legalization of the de facto legalization, because it's only a de facto legalization, it's not a real legalization, has produced very odd things happening in Holland. I was taken recently, I've also just come back from Amsterdam, and not long ago I gave a little talk at the Ministry of Justice there, and one of the officials came to me and pointed out a housing project that you could see from the Ministry of Justice in The Hague. And it's, everyone in this housing estate was unemployed and getting their 1,200 or 1,500 euros a month for doing nothing. But they didn't do nothing. They were growing cannabis, actually. And they were making about 5,000 or 6,000 euros a month growing cannabis, uninterrupted in general by the Dutch police. And so what was happening now is that these people had absolutely no incentive whatever to go and work, because of course they couldn't do anything anyway, and that anyone would pay them much for. So there was no prospect of them earning, going to work. Now you could say, well, if everyone just grew cannabis, the price would fall and therefore they wouldn't earn 6,000 euros a month, or 5,000 or whatever it was. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure that it would be catastrophic, but I'm not sure either that it would have the enormous benefits. The fact is that the consumption of alcohol, certainly, within societies does have some relation to its price. So that if the price goes up, the consumption goes down, and vice versa, of course. And if one of the prices is that you might get chased by the police, it probably does deter people. But I can see the argument, but I don't think it'll have the benefits claimed. If my argument is right, and that people take, I'm talking about opiates now, if they take opiates more because they're criminal than they're criminal because they take opiates, then the criminality would not be reduced by legalizing it. And furthermore, with regard to the drug dealers, I don't believe that they would beat their guns into plowshares, and then they might turn them on people other than other drug dealers. And this is actually quite a serious point, because in my hospital, when I started there, we didn't have any gunshot wounds, and then we became expert in treating gunshot wounds, but we knew that everyone being shot was a drug dealer by other drug dealers.
Thank you for that talk. I found it very encouraging. Sigmund Freud writes a great deal about man's need to escape, and points out alcohol, opiates, movies, work. Have you analyzed why the need is so great? Man's need to escape is so great.
Yes, well, I feel it myself. In fact, my life has been one long escape, really. I think the existential position of the drug addicts that I see is an absolutely terrible one. And it's a problem in our society It's a serious problem because here are people who actually have no religious belief. They have no culture in the sense of anything that they do themselves. Their economic prospects are very slight. They have no intellectual, cultural interests. And furthermore, they have no struggle for existence in the sense that in our societies you just can't starve to death without actually deciding, you just cannot do it. It's impossible. And what's more, you can't really, unless you go at it very hard, become homeless either. So there's no pride, as there was that I saw when I lived in Africa, in survival. So what is left for these people? And I think the kind of oblivion, or what one could say is a kind of oceanic feeling followed by oblivion, induced by opiates, is quite likely a good alternative for these people. And one of the things that alarms me about the young English, of course I know people have been saying this for 2,500 years, but this time it's true, is that I hear them talking, and they talk about the wonderful evening they had before because they can't remember anything about it. So the fact that they can't remember anything about it means that it's a wonderful time, which makes you wonder what it is, what their lives actually are. So I think it's a very serious question. But I think in a modern welfare state, for very large numbers of people, there is no answer. And that is the real reason why we have people resorting more and more to drugs and alcohol.
Hi. I realize your focus is on opiates. But on the other hand, as somebody has already pointed out, alcohol addiction is enormous. Plus, of course, we have methamphetamine and cocaine. So I'm trying to get a better understanding of your views on the addiction bureaucracy, the treatment field, particularly as it pertains to these other chemicals that are much more devastating, and especially with young people, teenagers, who are more vulnerable, it seems to me, to the harder drugs and more vulnerable to going the wrong way in so many different ways. So what is your take on the addiction bureaucracy, and do you feel there are certain types of addiction treatment that might be more effective?
I think it's extremely unlikely that any treatment, any attempt to deal with these problems in a purely technical fashion is going to work, because the problem is not a technical one. I have no solution. I can't tell you what my solution is. I mean, I think actually probably a reversal of the welfare state would actually have some benefit, but I don't think I'm going to persuade many people of that, at least in England. But I don't think that a purely technical approach to these questions is going to help. As I said, I have no objection whatever to people going into rehabilitation, because, provided one doesn't think of it as a medical procedure, because the fact is that people have often for a very long time made such a terrible mess of their lives that getting them back to some kind of decent way of life is not the work of a moment. It's impossible. And for example, I've seen this often. We dry out alcoholics and so on, and they've alienated everyone in their family, and they've ruined their careers and so on, and they're 53, and they come out of their alcoholic haze, and they look around and they see the devastation around them, and they say, well, if that's what life is, I might as well drink. And there comes a point at which you say, well, I really can't recommend much else. But that's certainly not true with young people. But I don't see there being any technical solution. You take this and you'll be fine. I don't think that's likely to ever to be the case.